today's topics should be a little bit easier. Rule 42, you all know, hopefully. We'll be able to discover a few of the things that umpires and judges are looking for in determining if there's a breach or not of Rule 42. And then we'll go into protest tips. Now, what happens on the water? How do you protect your right to protest? A few, tips and tricks on that before the hearing, preparing the hearing, and things to do while you're in the room. Again, as Brandon said, you're all very welcome to interrupt and ask questions. It shouldn't be, I hope, as long a session as the other ones. So we have the luxury of hearing your voice a little bit more. Okay, so let's get started with Rule 42. Now, it comes as no surprise that a good boat technique makes us go faster, and this includes how we move in the boat and how we make the move faster, so we can get a better performance. And we need to ask ourselves, eventually, where is the limit? Rule 42 sets a standard where the rule is, but there is a grading that happens between what it says on the rule and before you get a penalty. And this is due to a myriad of reasons, where the judges are positioned, how well they can see you, sometimes what is the level of the competition, that would have been discussed with the class, etc. And there's two main types of penalties or infringements: technical infringements and tactical ones. The technicals are, relates to the way you are sailing the boat. And we match that against the interpretations that we have on Rule 42, and we decide. Normally, the two judges on the RIB will agree on a decision before a penalty is given. On the tactical ones, the purpose of a tactical infringement is just to gain, for example, a tactical advantage, just be, do a body pump or a fanning of the sail to gain or break an overlap before entering the zone. And normally these ones, just one judge will be enough to make that decision, okay? So, there's a few terms that you need to be familiar with. And if you haven't looked at the interpretations on Rule 42, you should do. It is where the tips and tricks come from, and how much can you push the rule, the elastic band that it is Rule 42. We normally get our notes and our interpretations with, highlighting and color coding to make sure that when we're double checking and triple checking things, we can find them very quickly. And it looks something like this. Other than that, the interpretations document, which is in the World Sailing website, will actually give you all these little codes, like basic 1, basic 2, basic 3, basic 4, of what is not permitted, what is permitted, there's exceptions to the rules, etc. And it normally fits in 2 pages. For example, 2 of the most common ones will be pump 1, which is fanning is moving of a sail in and out, not in response to wind shifts, gusts, or waves. So that's very clear. If we go to pump 6, repeated flicks of the sail due to body pumping are prohibited. So this is where we're gonna find, at the moment, pretty much everything we need to know about Rule 42. And this is what the judges are using to, to match your actions against whether you are breaking or not the rule. There's also the concept of, let me see if I can find it, of a yellow light, which is here. I'll show you here. Yellow light. The yellow light area is a phrase used when it's not clear that an action is prohibited. It is unlikely that a boat in the yellow light area will be penalized, but it is possible if the action is repeated, the likelihood of a penalty will rapidly increase. So there are a few instances, for example, where you are allowed to pump the sail, where planning or surface conditions might be marginal, and you're allowed to pump once, and if you fail, you're allowed to pump a second one, and even if you don't succeed, you will be in the yellow light area, but you will not be penalized. But a third pump will get you there straight away. There won't be any questions. Anyway, so I thought we'll see a few examples of the most common breaches and then increase from that. One thing that this is a rule of thumb that I have, and that a lot of judges also do, which is if we cannot explain the breach, you do not penalize a boat. So before we go with the yellow flag to you, we would have definitely be very, very aware of why we are penalizing you and that we can explain it to you. If we can't explain it, then it's not a breach as far as we are concerned. Okay, now I don't have enough videos of the laser class, so I've used some from John Emmett's Rule 42 video and some from the RYA Top 5 Rule 42 breaches. Both videos are very good. The first one is more on a discussion basis. It'll show things that are allowed, things that are not allowed. In some cases, it will put, when there's a breach, it'll give you the interpretation. In some other ones, it doesn't. But it's good to review if you haven't done it. And the RYA one is not using a laser, but it's using an arrow. But they are also very, very good in their explanation. Okay, so we've just used a few of each just to illustrate. So here we have the first one. The first one is the sculling, and the things that first we'll watch the video and then we'll ask the questions. Okay. Now, someone that is brave enough to break the ice, how many breaches have you seen on that video? If anybody wants to have a go. And we'll put it again while you're thinking about it. Okay. Any volunteers? We'll go with it anyway. So the first part of the video shows the boat. Sorry, that was the next one. The first part of the video shows the guy sculling in both directions, relatively forceful to make gains and go upwind by sculling. And then afterwards, he sculls even below close haul course, which is also a not permitted action in that last sequence over here from here. From here onwards. Okay, that's below close hold and he's still sculling. So you are allowed when you're sculling to scull when you're above close hold course to a close hold course. It doesn't matter in which side, so you can cross head to wind. But once you reach a close hold course, you're no longer allowed to scull below close hold course. So that was the first one. The second one is going to show us how you can actually scull and not break the rule. Now, the difference with the other video is that he's not sculling in both directions. He only sculls in one direction and then just steers the boat up. That is allowed. So he's above close hold course. Let's go back again. Above close hold course, sculling, and then he just steers back up. So that is perfectly okay. Okay. Now, the things that we are looking for here is, what we're looking for is first, we need to be in the right position. If we are not in the right position, it's gonna be very difficult to see the right reach. Now, sculling is relatively easy to see on the start from where the umpires and the judges are, which is behind, sorry, I forgot about homework. Oops. Sorry, thanks. I'll deal with the homework in a minute. If we are downwind to the line, so we'll be able to see those breaches fairly easy, and we'll always be talking. So when we have a possible sculling case, we're asking whether the tiller movements are forceful, first of all. And as you saw in the last video, they are forceful in one direction, but it's just steering upwind. Then are they propelling the boat in any direction or preventing it from moving astern? If we look at the first case, not only they were preventing the boat from moving astern, but they were actually moving the boat upwind, so it's propelling the boat. Is the boat above close haul and clearly altering course towards a close haul course? Well, in both cases, sorry, in the first case, the first half is not. Okay, it's going in both directions, sculling in both directions. On the second one, yes, it's always sculling from above close haul to a close haul course and then steering back up. Is the sculling offsetting a previous sculling? Well, in the second video, it's not, because again, the movements of the tiller are smooth and it's just steering up. So it's not offsetting. If you take the first video that we saw, both movements are, if you are sculling in both directions, you are offsetting all the time. And if the competitor is back in the sail, is the sculling preventing the boat from changing course? This is crabbing. We are going to leave this one for later on. Okay. Now, trigger pulls. So we are going to see what that looks like in what not to do and what to do. Now, anybody wants to put their hand up and tell me if that was a good trigger pull or not from the rules point of view? Would he get penalized?
Maybe show it again, Cxema.
Okay, let's go again.
I can pick somebody out if you like. I see some likely candidates.
Now,
I see Mark Coakley there.
come on.
Hey, Mark.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't think you broke any rules.
Okay, so let's say this one. Hailing the boat to leeward and followed by a body pump which clearly propels the boat breaks the rule. Okay, now the one key here, the one that tells us why he's breaking the rule, or sorry, that he's setting himself up to break the rule, is this one. We have the tiller push to bear down and the body leaning to leeward to, in theory, assist what it will be going upwind, okay, to steer the boat upwind. So that's a clear indication that he's setting himself up in this case for a breach of the trigger pull, okay, of basic 4, which is propelling the boat forward. Let's just see that. And then when he is straight, he's no longer altering course at that point, you know, while he was doing that. So you have to be very careful that when you are, let's say, in this first phase, initial phase, that when you are leaning in, okay, is in theory to alter course upwind. So when you're leaning in, your tiller should be in the other direction, or at least straight, okay? Let's see, how would that, once more? We'll see now the slow-mo. Tiller in, tiller out. Now, the difficulty with this for the judges is where they are positioned. To see this breach, what the rule says is that clearly propels the boat, a body movement that clearly propels the boat forward. And from when we are positioned normally here in this area, it's very difficult to see if this boat is being propelled forward. Okay, you have to be positioned a little bit to leeward and a little bit higher up to see that increase in speed. And again, because you have a full line of boats, sometimes you might be able to pick one or two out of the entire fleet, you know, but it doesn't happen often. It's a difficult one to call because we cannot have a guess of whether the breach has happened. We need to be absolutely sure. If we're not sure, we're not giving that penalty. So either we have a boat that is already going fast and this guy accelerates and you can see the distance increasing very rapidly, or unless you're very well positioned and is someone that is really almost 90 degrees to you, you can see the acceleration and the bow wave and then slowing down after that. You know, you really have to see it. The alternative, or what it will be a good one, will be this type of start. Again, have a look at the tiller and the body movement. So she has the tiller in the center, but the boat is flat, and she only lifts the boat heel over and then flatten it. Okay, but she's not inducing that roll, while at the same time she has the tiller up for bearing away. Let's keep going. Now, allegedly, you know, she has a little bit more wind and it's a little bit hard. When we are looking at these type of breaches, and here's another one, we have the body pumps at the start, similar situation. Sculling, trigger pull, and then look at those flicks of the sail. That happens quite a lot more than you think. People get excited and do a little pumps with the body, and you know, the flicks of the sail are there. Again, the same happens. Bears away while leaning in. That tells us he's setting himself up potentially to a breach, and then he carries on with those leech flicks throughout. Okay. Now, so where are we looking for? Again, if we're not in the right place, as I said, we are downwind. So some of these breaches are a little bit more difficult to see than the others. So for the possible pumping, always the surfing and foiling conditions happen. Well, it's not necessarily the case in either at the moment. Are the crew pumping themselves or surfing or foiling or planing? Not the case, but now, do I have the right? Sorry, I got the wrong. Got the slides changed. We'll get to it. But the questions for these two videos. So the one on the flicks of the sail, the body pumps, is very easy to see because the rule doesn't talk about propelling the boat forward. It says flicks of the sail due to body pumping. Okay, so we first look at the sail and then we look at what the body is doing. And if we look at this video again, we'll see it clearly. One, two, three, and then another one and another one. Okay. In the case of the trigger pulse, as we've said, is the body movement assisting the steering of the boat? And the answer is no, it's not assisting the steering of the boat. Okay. And then is propelling the boat forward. Can you, the umpire or the judge, can he or she clearly see the boat propelling forward? And as I said, when we are positioned downwind, it's very difficult to see that. It's a lot easier to see, for example, when you're doing roll tacks and jibes. Now, let's go to the next one. So I know what's happening. I've reversed the slide. So We are going to look at pumping now. This is pumping of the sails. So first question is always, are they surfing, foiling, or planing conditions? If they don't, we know that we need to decide whether the chances are 0, is it marginal, or is it good? And then are we looking at the sail? Well, surfing, foiling, or planing, are they moving the sails or the body? You know, is it just a trim response to the conditions? You know, maybe there's a, you know, a wind shift and they're required to trim, you know, to, you know, positive turns, negative turns, are they trimming? And is this repeated? That's the next question. Because they are allowed to do it once, even twice in marginal conditions. Are they repeating it more than that? Then it's a penalty. And then are we talking about positive pumps or negative pumps? Remember, if you let the sail out and stop it, that creates a flick in the leech. That is permitted. So that doesn't count as pumping. That's what Aislinn referred to as negative pump. And can the flick in leech be connected to the body movements, or is it caused by other factors? So let's have a look. Let's look at rolling downwind. This is similar to what happened. Sorry, I got my slides mixed up for some reason. I must have saved them wrong. Apologies for that. Let's look at rolling downwind. Remember, rolling is all about assisting. You know, you are allowed to roll the boat to leeward or windward to assist the boat, the steering of the boat. If you're not doing it while you're steering the boat, you're likely to be breaking the rule. So we are going to look at something that happens a lot in the lasers, especially when there's a little bit of wind, which is you do the rolls the wrong way around. And what that achieves is that you end up provoking a fanning of the sail, which is a bridge. So if you look at where how the steering goes, okay, the body doesn't go with the tiller; it goes the opposite way. And when that happens, now you see the rolls happening. She does it again. Well, that's okay. She does it again. That's gonna get her a penalty. The right way of doing it, which is what you're used to do it, is that's a positive turn. She's assisted the right way, body out, negative turn, and that's all well and good. That's absolutely fine. Positive turn again, heeling the boat to leeward, and negative turn, heeling the boat to windward. Those are fine. So when we're looking at the rolls, this is what we're looking for. Again, is the competitor causing the boat to roll, or is just the waves? Is she or not moving at all? Is just accentuating the background rolling? We have to be careful with that, you know. Is actually, which is the key, is the rolling induced by the competitor helping to steer the boat? If the answer is yes, and it's proportional, then it's absolutely fine. When you see that is either the opposite, in other words, the boat is, you're steering the boat to leeward, and at the same time your body goes to leeward, you know that the net effect of that is going to be a fanning of the sail, a jump. Okay, so you know that at that point you'll be breaking the rule. While you want to see is the opposite, is body goes out, boat goes, steers. Okay. And obviously it's in sync with the waves. If there's no waves, you'll be hard pushed to justify how much steering you are doing. Anyway, and then we go into the other one, which is, if you allow me to go back for a second, is this one. The surfing or foiling planing conditions exist. Are the crew pumping the sail while surfing or planing? Could the trim and release be a response to the conditions? Is the repeated trim and release fanning of the sail? Does negative pump cause the flicking of the leech? And can we connect the flicking of the leech to the body movement? So if we look at this video now, we will see that. So in this case, we have very marginal conditions. Sorry, I don't want to distract me. And you will see that she pumps the sail once. See, that's one. We see the bow wave stays there. She doesn't overtake the bow wave, so it's an unsuccessful event. She does a second time, that's a yellow light area, exactly the same. The bow wave stays and she doesn't overtake her own bow wave. And she gets the third one in, which is a breach, as we've seen before. Now, and this is the other interpretation, pump 12. If a boat is already planing or surfing, if you then pull the sail and pump the sail, that is already a breach of the rule, even a single one. So you are allowed to pump to initiate surfing, planing, or foiling. But once you are already surfing, planing, or foiling, you are no longer allowed to pump that sail. And it's the same with the body pump, okay? And this is what we have, sorry. Surfing and planing conditions exist. Are the crew pumping the sails while surfing or foiling? In this case, in the first video, on the second half of the video is yes, that's a breach of pump 12. Could the trim be released to the response to the conditions? Well, that wasn't the case necessarily in the two videos, but it could be. Is the repeated trim and release fanning of the sail? Yes, it is, because it doesn't respond to the wind conditions or wind shifts or gusts. And there's negative pumping. There was an example in those ones. And can we connect the flicking of the leads to the body movements? Well, that wasn't our case in this particular one, but as we saw, it was relevant for the one at the start. Now, roll tacks. If you remember, I think it was Jack was talking about roll tacking, and sometimes you will get a penalty on a roll tack. I want to show you a couple of examples of when that happens, and then some examples of what happens on the limit. So in this first part of the video, we're gonna see this guy going into the tack and coming out at exactly the same speed. It doesn't go any faster. Now, sorry. Go again. That's one, and it's fine. That's the speed coming in and coming out. Okay. So that's what the rule allows you to do. You can exaggerate your body movements to get you to the same, to come out of the tack at the same speed as you went in, okay? Now, as we keep watching the next guy, this is the same, comes in, but this is where an umpire might be in a bad position to see it. You wouldn't see an increase in speed. But look at this guy now. Okay, I don't know if you can see the difference on the body, okay, but there is an increase of a speed, which is definitely not the same speed at which he went in. That can get penalized. Now, where the video is taken from, if I was an umpire and I'm looking at this, for me, it will be very difficult to penalize this boat until I'm absolutely sure that there is a game. And the best place to see that is a little bit like in the first video. The umpire will want to be here, where he or she might see the bow and the entire, what happens afterwards. Because when we are talking about these penalties, what you're looking for, unless you can clearly see the boat being propelled forward. Now, what happens with this guy is giving us an indication that there might be a breach there. The way he pumps the boat, right? That body movement, which is exaggerated towards the second part of the flattening of the boat, is what will trigger our suspicions. But again, we ask ourselves, is he delaying the righting of the boat after the tack? If the answer is yes, now we should be aware that you're not allowed to do that. You have to be all kind of a single movement throughout. If you are delaying it, you are already setting yourself up for a penalty. Is it followed by a vigorous stream of the seat or body pump? Is it clearly propelling the boat? So the question to the first part is, as we've seen in the second video, in the first video, is no, it's fine. Is it clearly propelling the boat? No. And in the second videos, you can see, is it followed by a vigorous stream of the seat or body pump? And the answer is yes. Is it clearly propelling the boat? Not sure, because I'm not in the right place. Potentially, yes. We're going to see some examples where we're going to put you to the test. Do the individual tacks increase the speed of the boat beyond normal upwind speed? And this is where, again, penalties do tend to come. And finally, is easy because of the body movements cause the increase in speed. And this one is key. Is the increase in speed after the tack followed by a sudden and significant decrease in speed? And you know what you will see a lot of times is you do your roll tack, you come out super fast, and then your sail will suddenly start luffing because you're going faster than your wind coming out of it. And that's a clear indication that you are potentially slowing down until it fills again. And then, well, you're not allowed to do, consecutive tacks unless it responds to wind shifts or tactical considerations. In a fleet, this is hard enough to apply, because if you have a blanket of a lot of boats, it's very hard to justify that there's either not a wind shift or that you're trying to position yourself in a better place. These are the two the catch of those roll tacks and jives as well. After attack, when a boat is on a new close haul course, body movement clearly propelling the boat is prohibited. Now, we have to be in the right place. And we're going upwind. If you are directly behind the boat, you won't be able to see that. But if you are, let's say, 45 degrees on the new tack, so if you are to windward and back of a boat and the boat tacks, you'll be able to see very clearly when that happens. And the same thing is either going faster going faster on the way out of the tack, or if you see that decrease on the speed. That's where the penalties tend to come from on the roll tacks, especially the second one, the basic 7, when the speed of a boat clearly drops after sea accelerates out of a tack or a jibe, and there's no obvious change in wind speed or direction. Now, I fished that this this video from one of the World Sailing Cup events in Genoa. Now, I want you to look at the roll tacks all the time that they take place, and I want you to see how much on the limit they are. Okay, that's Phil Lynch. That, to me, that was a penalty. But anyway, that's too early in the video to pay. Look at the, Trinidad Tobago. Okay. Now, can you you have a better angle than the umpires have in this one to see? Let's look at that tag from Trinidad Tobago. To me, that's not a penalty. Hungary is not a penalty. But you see how much the movements are exaggerated, and whether we cannot be sure if they are coming up any faster, but certainly there's a vigorous movement of the body. We are not sure it's propelling the boat forward, okay? This one from Hungary is especially, look, it's in our nose, okay? Let's look at it now. Hungary 3119 goes in, out, and look at that body movement. Raka. Now again, from where we are now, we cannot see if it propelled the boat forward. From when these umpires coming up here, they couldn't have seen it either. Okay, so it's always about how well positioned the umpires or the judges are in order to get that going. We'll put it once more for you to have a look at it. Okay. Do you see? It's hard to see because it's very beginning and it's just on the cut. But I want you to look at two things on that tag from Phil Lynch. It's two things. One is the body movement and then how he pulls the main in. Okay. Let's have a look at it again. Sorry, guys. So that is a very to me, a very suspect tag. But again, we are in a better position than the umpire or the judges are to see that breach. Let's look at the other tags again. Trinidad Tobago. That's a decent tag. Not too hard enough, but not too hard. Hungary is hard enough, but not too hard. We look at Phil Lynch now, tagging the same. That's absolutely fine. And then we have these 3119 and have a look at the speed is going in. And then the main goes in. Okay. So, you know, I'll leave it to you. To me, they are at what we are saying is the very limit. And they're trying to get to that fine line between not breaking it and breaking it. And that's how you, in essence, have to go and sail the boat in the end. Okay. We move on now. Next one is about crabbing. Now, hands up. Can you move your boat to windward by backing the sail? Is that allowed? Anybody? Brandon, will you call a name?
Yeah, I'll pick someone who should know. Hold on a sec. Leave Mark alone.
And bonus point is if you can tell me which rule tells us what to do or not to do.
Dave Coleman.
Dave.
You wait.
There, boss.
Will you ask him the question again?
The question is, are we allowed to back our sail? And if that takes us to windward, that's fine. Is there a rule that tells us Ashley mentioned that there's a rule that if you're backing the sail and moving to windward, okay, you have to keep clear of a boat that is not. Okay, that is rule 21.3. But when you're sailing, if you back your sail, can you honestly just go to windward? Or do you have to do something else to make that happen? Okay, let's have a look. So in order to move a boat to windward by backing the sail, we need to use the tiller, okay? If we didn't use the tiller, we'll end up either turning the boat or starting to go backwards. So that is what is called crabbing. So while you're doing that, two things. If you're doing that and you're not being penalized for breaking Rule 42, you have to keep clear of other boats, even if they are to windward of you, okay? And if you're doing it, you're breaking the rule because the rule doesn't prohibit you. We'll watch it once more. The rule doesn't prohibit you. It's not forbidding you from backing the sail, okay? But what the rule is forbidding you to do, prohibiting you to do, is to use the tiller to offset the movement due to backing the sail, which is what happens when you're doing the crabbing, when you're crabbing, sorry. Okay. So this is how the rule, the propulsion part on that rule is is written, is a scull tree. Sculling to offset the steering of the boat caused by backing a sail is prohibited. That's the key one, okay? And then the last one of our rule 42s, and then we'll move into the homework. Sorry, I forgot about it, is this one now. Aslin spoke to us about, you know, if you guys remember, when you put your feet against the handrail on the lure side, and then you can pump your boat and you cannot be penalized for it. Well, it's not quite there, but it's very difficult to call. Now, what this guy is going to do is something very, very similar. And the effect on the sail is exactly the same one. And remember, judges look at the sail before they look at the body movement. You know, the guys are normally looking at the sails rather than the bodies. It's the sail that tells us whether we should be looking at the body. Can you see those flicks like that? Okay, let's have a look again. Now, when you are going upwind and you have your feet in the or 1 foot on the lure side, you will get a similar sail movement in the leech, right? Then you need to, is the difficult part, you need to connect that to body movements. In this case, the cases like this ones is easier because they're up and down movements. You can see the boat, the guy just moving their back, okay? Well, the same happens when you have your feet on the lure side. Your back is moving and you will be able to relate to it. But when you're going upwind, when you're on a close haul course, unless you have the guy immediately in front of you doing it, it's going to be very, very hard to call because you need to be able to see both things, the leech flicking and the body movement. And when the judges are going upwind, they are normally following roughly a course that is upwind all the time within their sector. So all the boats are normally, or most of the time, within 45 degrees to them. So until you get to the ley lines. So it's hard for the judges to call this one, okay? Any questions, any issues? Okay. We've already seen this. Now, before we move into the protest, let's have a look at the homework from last week. Sorry about this. Now, who did ask the question?
I think they were anonymous.
Anonymous, okay. So, hands up, who will penalize the blue boat?
Hit the raise hands.
Raise hand on your screens, guys. Yeah. No hands.
We're one, Andre Passberger.
I see no hands. Jesus, why am I not seeing that?
Oh, maybe. Oh no, maybe I got it wrong. Sorry. Oh, confusion reigns.
Oh, I just. No hands.
No.
Who will penalize yellow? Okay, a little bit better. Sorry, I can see my panelists now. So we have 5 people that are pretty sure about it and a few that 6. Okay. Now, raise your hand now. You can lower all your hands. You can raise your hand if you think Rule 18 has anything to do with this situation. Or raise your hand if you think Rule 18 has nothing to do with this situation. Okay. So Rule 18 has nothing to do with this situation. Again, you have to remember the right-of-way rules. Okay, Rule 18 sits on top of the right-of-way rules. So the right-of-way rules still apply. Blue sorry, yellow is the keep clear boat because they are on a port tack, and blue is the starboard tack boat, therefore is the right of way boat. So there's no reason why yellow would be able to go in that direction without breaking rule 10 with the blue boat. Okay, so what yellow should do is either, you know, slow down if it really wants to go to the left, to the left hand side mark, or sorry, or just jibe and take, because she will be entitled to mark room if she were going to the starboard mark. Okay, so think about it. Rule 10 trumps rule 18 or anything like that. Okay, is that a good enough answer? You happy with that? Anybody would like to add anything?
Before you go into the protest, Cxema, can I ask you to clarify? You said a negative pump, so
yes,
is never an offense. Is that, or am I misquoting you there? Or is there
no,
any scenario where it is an offense?
So negative pumps are allowed. Is the interpretation called pump 4? I'm going to put it on the screen sorry, in the previous page. Pump 4, and it's this one. A flick of a sail resulting from the sudden stopping of an east sheet is permitted. This is when you let your sail go. Let's say that you're going to do a negative turn. This is a turn to leeward, and you're letting the sail out, and then you stop it. When you stop a sail abruptly, there is a flick of the leech, right? That flick is permitted. And as Ashley mentioned on the previous one of her talks, you have to train to be able to do that all the time. Every time you turn your boat to leeward, and you heel the boat to windward, you roll down on a negative turn, and when you are getting there, you stop your mainsail from going out to get that pump. That is permitted.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you.
Now, I hope that this part is a little bit more interactive, guys, because it's more about discussion. Gonna hopefully give you a few tips on how to do your protests and get a few tricks up your sleeve or things to do when you're preparing or about to go into the protest room and when you're in the protest room. So, for example, does anybody think that you want to attract attention to a situation developing? So you think that there's going to be an incident ahead. Would you want to attract attention to it or not? And why?
If you think you're going to be in the right or have to keep clear boat and somebody else is wrong, then you want to attract attention.
I say you will want attention every time, because the main point is you don't want to get into a situation that becomes an incident. Okay, so whether you're the keep clear boat or you're the right of way boat, you want to make boats aware of A, what you're doing and how you're doing it, or what you're going to do. So, for example, if you're the right of way boat on a port starboard tack incident and you're going, you're the starboard boat, you say, starboard, please tack, but tack now before it's too late, you know, or I'm going to keep going. Or the opposite, I'm a starboard, but you go ahead. It's fine because I'm in the right shift and I want to keep going on this tack. Okay, so you want situations to not to become incidents, and therefore you do that. If you are the keep clear boat, how many times have you told somebody else, hold your course, I'm crossing, hold your course, I'm crossing, or, you know, I'm docking, it's okay, I'm docking, I'll go behind. So those situations, hopefully, you know, when you say hold your course, I'm crossing, you know, this is a high stakes situation, so you're walking into it. But for the other ones, you're letting them know you're not going to be a problem for them. Okay, How do you protect your right to protest? This is very, very important, even if multiple boats are involved. This happens in the water. You always hail protest immediately, no delays. Protest, protest, protest. You don't need to say much more than that, okay? But the key here is that if you don't do that, that's the bare minimum. If you don't do that, and then you hail a little bit too late, or you take too much time, you are already walking into a situation where your protest is likely to be ruled invalid. So always protect your right, and the way you protect your right to do that is by hailing protest. It doesn't mean that you will file it afterwards. You're just protecting your right to protest. And when multiple boats are involved, let's say, I'm gonna say something stupid, but it happens quite a lot in the Volvo Doleri, for example, regatta, when you have boats coming up from different clubs, and then a group of boats goes around the round mark, okay? Well, you need to protest all of those boats you want to protest. It's not good enough to say protest. You need to notify everybody, because the boats that you don't notify, you will not be able to make the protest stick when it gets to validity if you didn't tell them, okay? For Rule 20, for breaches of not sailing the course properly, you have an allowance, which is that you will have to inform those boats as soon as possible. It doesn't have to be underwater, but you'll have to make the effort of going to the other clubs and try to protest them, or find a suitable arrangement. And in the Volvo Doleri Regatta, for example, we've done them with, we normally post a procedure that says how you should do this. But bear in mind, always protest all the boats involved. Otherwise, you might not. You might get to the surprise that you are not able to succeed with this. What can tell me what things do you need to maximize your chances of success when you are, you're thinking about protesting someone?
I think you're going to need a witness, right?
You're going to need a witness. So that's one of the other reasons you want to attract attention to a situation developing, because suddenly all eyes turn around. And if you have juries that are a little bit proactive, they might be, they'll have their own video cameras looking, so they might be able to capture the action. Or if there are coaches, they might be able to get some video footage of it. So, again, this is all pre. It doesn't mean that you will file the protest, but at least you're lining your ducks in a row to say, okay, well, if I go, I know the judges were looking at it, or that there was a coach at the Windward mark that was filming everything. Hopefully I can get the video from him, those sort of things. Or who are your witnesses around? Again, that sort of thing. So it is important. Then you get into the considerations of the risk versus reward. Will you be going to the protest room? If you are the protester of the protestee, does that make a difference? So what is the chances of winning? What are the chances of winning a protest? Even if you're an 80% sure that, that you are right. Well, the protest, the chances of winning a protest are 50-50, or losing a protest. For example, a risk versus reward. Will you be going to the protest room? Well, that depends. If I'm the protester and there was contact, I have to be very sure that I will be filing that one, because there is a chance that both boats could get disqualified because one of them broke Rule 14 and the other one broke Rule 10. Remember, avoiding contact. And if there was contact, your chances are already very shaky, the same as they are for the protestee. And if you're the protestee, well, is it the time to make your turns? Have you practiced your turns, your 2-turn penalties? Because it's not the same to lose 5 places than to get a DSQ. Roughly, you lose 5 places when you're doing a 2-turn penalty in a laser fleet. depends on how dense the competition is, but in a 20 to 30 fleet, that's what you'll get, 5 places, and a DSQ will put you last. So have a think about it. So yes, do we want to attract attention to a situation? Yes, if I'm the right-of-way boat, I want to make sure that what the situation and what my intentions are. If I'm the keep clear boat, I'll be complying with my obligation early. And again, we go back to helps attract attention from witnesses and recordings and videos. For example, not too long ago at a World Championship, out of 20 protests, I had 8 of them on video, and we were able to dispense with them very quickly, because as soon as the parties are in, and you pass through the validity, the relevant judge will say, well, we have this on video, let's review it together, so it moves the process along very quickly. And then, yes, always protect your right to protest. So hail protest immediately. It doesn't mean that you have to file it. You're only just making sure that you're protecting that right. And remember, if there are any particular sailing instructions, especially in youth classes, where you might be to notify the race committee or the finished vessel, something like that. Make sure you're thinking. And a very important one, if you're thinking about redress due to damage because you were in an incident, you now have to file a protest. It's not good enough to file just for redress. You have to file a protest. That's one of the changes from the change into the new cycle. Okay, redress for damage due to another boat breaking a rule of Part 2, and this is all contained within Rule 62. If you want to have a read, it also requires you now that the other boat has either taken the appropriate penalty, or has been penalized. And for that to happen, a protest has had to either the boat has taken turns, or a protest has disqualified the boat or imposed a penalty. Otherwise, you will not be getting redress. Now, when wouldn't you file a protest, even if you are right? Any ideas? Again, was there contact with damage? Then beware of Rule 14, was the contact avoidable? Now, you might think it wasn't avoidable, but you are now putting your hands in the jury. Modern juries will tend to be on the water all the time, and they'll witness a lot, but not everything. And when you get to a hearing, you're no longer judging what happened on the water, but what is produced at the hearing. So you're judging what happens at the hearing, not what happened on the water. And for that to happen, you have to prepare accordingly. How do you prepare for a hearing? Well, obviously, if you don't have a witness, you don't have video, you're going in with a 50-50 chance. So find your witnesses, find your video recordings if you can. Get very, very much on board. What is the critical factor, the critical fact that makes this a breach of the rule? Was this boat subject to Rule 13? Was he tacking? Then, make sure that all your evidence is linked towards putting that place, having passed head to wind, and not yet having reached a close haul course. Okay, so you need to read the rules and use the language in the rule to target what exactly is that you are going to say in your evidence to prepare your case. Any ideas on what do we actually need to write in the protest, and whether we need to draw a diagram, yes or no? Okay, so again, we don't have to write a lot. We do need to write some basics. When and where was the incident? What leg, what race, what leg, and if you can remember the time, that's handy, but not critical. And then the most important thing is the incident itself. And how much of the incident you have to write is not a lot. It's just enough to convey the critical fact or that makes that breach. So, for example, and you need to identify the other parties involved, but you have to do this before the hearing starts. So you don't have to do it when you file it, but just to be safe, try to always file with the parties involved in it. So when you're describing the incident, always use language that conveys the actions in relation to the critical fact. For example, if a boat in the reach was to windward of you and was not keeping clear, and you left and was not keeping clear, you will have to say something along the lines, if you are the lure boat, I left slowly and the other boat took no action to keep clear until we were 30 centimeters apart, for example, right? Or the opposite, if you are the windward boat and the other boat luffed up and says, well, okay, I was windward boat, the lure boat luffed sharply, and I could not take, I tried to avoid contact, but I couldn't. I reacted promptly and in a signal-like way. Okay, so again, try to use the language that is in the rules to do that, but you don't need to overshare everything. Just focus on that critical fact. If you're defending in a protest, what actions will you take? For starters, there's a case out there, World Case 48. Now, in essence, you have, what that case says is that you have to be proactive in preparing your defense. You cannot just turn up and then ask for the copy of the protest. You cannot just turn up, especially if you have a hearing that has been scheduled an hour after finish racing or something until you go back ashore. Use the time to see if you can find your witnesses if you didn't do before, your video evidence, all of those things. You need to sort of get them moving early. You cannot just turn up. If you turn up late to your hearing, then you'll be made to pay the price by being embarrassed about it, because they'll let you know. But you're eliminating any goodwill towards you that the jury could have in relation to facilitate more time to prepare, things like that. How do you start preparing? It's very, let me just take that out. How do you start preparing is very simple. You start preparing as soon as you know, if someone shouted at you on the water protest, okay, you know that there's a likelihood that may happen. So don't wait until you get called. Be proactive, check the board, check the notice board, and as soon as you see, ask in the race office, has anybody filed a protest against me? If they have, ask for a copy of the protest at that moment. The sooner that you can do it, you'll know what the critical fact that is being alleged, what the incident that has been alleged, and you can start preparing by looking at the rule book, any cases, anything that might support your version of the events. This is case 48. So in essence, what this is saying is, any protest, you have to take it seriously. Remember, that you should remember that a protest hearing can go ahead without you being present. There has to be a very, very compelling reason why, after you don't turn up to a hearing that has been properly scheduled and announced and everything in the notice board, there has to be a very compelling reason for the hearing to be postponed afterwards, or reopen the hearing because you couldn't be present at it. I think the other ones we've touched. Prepare early. So the rule says you should be given reasonable time to prepare. So again, but at the same time, it means that you cannot be idle on your thumbs. Like the case on this case 48 is very funny. The protest committee commented upon the appeal as follows. The time of the hearing was posted on the official notice board. Protest was lodged with the race office and was available for reading for well over an hour prior to that time. Her representative informed Y's representative that the protest had been lodged. He made no effort to prepare a defense. He had to be summoned from the club's dining room when the protest committee, the other party, and the witnesses were assembled and ready to proceed. You know, so again, this is not going to be a great, you know, a great scenario for you if you're not being proactive about things. And the last one, which is very important, especially if you've been hailed on the water, do not leave the venue until the hearing schedule has been closed, or have a mechanism of some sort, like whether it's a coach monitoring, or is, you know, if you have a rota with a number of sailors where everybody, you know, there's one of you checking the board each day, you know, until the hearing has been schedule has been closed. During the hearing, not even going to ask, be on time and bring everything you need for the hearing with you. Do you want observers? More and more people tend to have observers, and that's fine. Juries more and more are happy with having their hearings open to a reasonable number of observers. Okay. Now, if you haven't had a genuine chance to prepare, you can ask for time to prepare. Sorry, one thing we didn't mention is, if you're going to file a protest, don't go to the shower and then file the protest. Go to the protest desk or to the race office, file the protest, and then say that you're going to go for a shower. Okay, just be clear. You cannot have undue delays on that, especially if you are in the verge of the time limit. The juries won't look kindly to someone that went for a shower, went for a beer, and then decided to file, and on top of that, they were a minute late. That's a no-no. Okay. But anyway, sorry. One of the things that people tend to not do is use this part well enough. Okay. Let's say that you know that there's video evidence and that you're looking for it. And, you know, you've been talking to a number of coaches that are put you in touch with another coach, that you're said at the beginning of the hearing, I'm waiting for some evidence or a video that I think will prove the case. If you say that and they tell you, I tell you what, we don't have the time, we're going to go ahead with the hearing, at least you can actually sort of strong arm the jury and say, when I get that video, can I bring it to the room as new evidence? We'll see what exactly new evidence there's is, but I think I've posted on a case, did I? Maybe not. I think I did, yeah. So always use that and ask for that time to prepare. When you're doing your testimony, please use measured language, but try to use language from the rule that points towards that critical fact. Okay. Again, you know, was I able to keep clear? I was not able to keep clear. I reacted probably in a similar way, but I couldn't avoid, and so in the end, I had to sort of crash back. That sort of thing. Things that convey what you want what the facts are that support your case. Again, don't forget to include the conditions, the speed that you were going at, the wind conditions, the sea state, the current, other boats in the proximity that might have limited your own options. Well, yes, he's right. I was unable to give him room, but I had another boat to lure of me, and it's that boat that I couldn't. So now the two of you have to work out to identify that boat and bring it into the protest room. When you're using the models that they will give you, and almost 90% of times juries want to see the models, is you have to be accurate with the distances, especially in the leading up and during the incident. Make sure that you're consistent with the wind direction and current, and try to use boat lengths and position your boats in terms of boat lengths until the boats are very close, then that's fine. Every time you position the boats very, very close, tend to say what the distance between the boats are. You will say 10 centimeters, 30 centimeters, half a meter, you know, that is always important. Witnesses' testimony. Okay, well, there's nothing worse than, you know, not having conferred with your witness and be sure that he's going to support your case, or that his testimony is going to support your case. And, you know, to say that someone saw the other boat was tacking is not good enough to bring it into the protest room. You should be very, very aware of what are the how is the witness going to say that, you know, and also you should query before the other party queries it. What was the vantage point of the witness? Was he exactly behind? What was this witness doing at the time when he or she claims that they saw this incident? You know, you need to be able to ask these questions and to your favor always. To your favor, or, you know, when the witness is supporting you, try to place, you know, use the evidence that they will provide to the best ability. But if it's in the other side, try to question, for example, always the vantage point. What were they doing at that time? Again, remember that you are not, it's not that you're not allowed, but the juries don't like when you're asking leading questions and tend to stop you very, very, very sharply. Or if you start with a statement, they'll stop you very, very early on and say, is that a question? Or that's the only courtesy they'll give you the first time around. The second time it says, stop, that's not a question. Stop, that's not a question. Do you have a question to ask? And, you know, so you have to have your questions in advance, and there's nothing stopping you from bringing your questions written down in a notepad or in a book, okay? And again, try to avoid accusations. Accusations never play well. You know, protests are difference of opinion, but when you start accusing people, that tends to rub, you know, to cause a bad impression of you more than the other person. Now, there's a new rule in the book that says that hearsay evidence has to be allowed. Anybody knows anything about it? What hearsay evidence is? Any volunteers? Well, in the past, hearsay evidence is indirect testimony. Somebody saw somebody else do something, okay? When that happens, in the past, the juries will not allow that type of evidence. They are now obliged, well, you know, they will now allow it, okay? You are entitled to bring hearsay evidence. But what the jury has, the counter for the jury is that they will give it the necessary weight, which might be no weight at all, but they will have to hear it, okay? And the last part on this is what to do when you are doing your summary. And this is key. Most people think that they have laid out their case during the protest hearing during the finding of facts. When you're summarizing your case, this is the time to put very, very bluntly, how you think the other boat broke the rule. And if you have any cases to support your evidence, this is when you bring them to the attention of the jury. Remember, the jury doesn't need you to tell them what the case says, but just mentioning what the case number is. That's all they need. They will go and look for it if they don't know it, okay? Finally, what happens if things didn't go according to plan? Again, remember, you get that disqualification is an opportunity to learn, but the best place of learning is from what the decision says in itself. So always ask for a copy of a decision and review it. That is the first step towards two things. If you think a reopening is necessary or could be granted, to initiate that, you have 24 hours to file for a reopening. If you think the protest committee made an error, a significant error, or if you have new evidence, and that gets reduced to 30 minutes after the decision has been given to you, even orally, in the last day of a competition, okay? And also because that also triggers the clock for an appeal. Anyway, let's look at the reopenings. If, you know, the reopenings can be granted if the committee, if the protest committee or the jury thinks that they made a significant error, or when new evidence comes to light. Now, what is new evidence? When it's not reasonable, it's not reasonably possible for the party asking for the reopening to have discovered it before the original hearing. Well, let's imagine that this happens. For example, if there's a media team, you might not have been able to see the video of the day's highlights, for example, until the evening, late in the evening. And suddenly you discover that the incident that you're talking about is on that reel. Well, you know, that's probably okay to bring to the attention of the protest committee at that point. The alternative is, you know, that you told the protest committee, I'm looking for this video. I haven't found it yet. I think it exists. You know, well, then it says that you were looking for it and you unsuccessfully, you didn't get it. But so now the protest committee has a basis for thinking, okay, well, look, you know, there was due diligence done in trying to obtain this video, but you quite didn't get there. You bring it now as soon as you got it. Fair enough. And the alternative, the last one, is if the protest committee learns from any source that the evidence was not available at the time of the original hearing. A little bit similar to the first case, you know. And then when we go to the appeals, it's important to remember that if the right of appeal has not been denied, that's under Rule 70.5, you can go and have a look at it, then you can appeal a decision and the procedure from the protest committee, but not the facts found. Okay, that is important to remember. Okay. More and more committees, well, the ones that have been out, if I'm the chair, I will make a strong case to take our time writing the decisions in such a way that they are as thorough as possible. We don't mind if the decision is wrong, and sometimes when we are in doubt, we'll send it to the national authority for correction, confirmation of or correction, but we'll include our own diagrams, our own, you know, a thorough facts found narrative, and that's the best chance that to offer the best chance to the sailors to, you know, to get the right decision in the end. That's all I have for you. If you have any questions, now is the time, guys. And it can be throughout the series. I don't mind, whatever you have.
Thanks, Cxema. Anybody wants to ask a question, just unmute yourself and jump in, I think.
Can I ask a question now? It's not laser Pacific, it's
Yeah.
ORS. You know the way you're not allowed to flick your sail a couple of times? Sometimes I found in the past where a batten gets, on a very light day, gets backed up, and I flick the sail to try and get the top batten to flick across. Is that against the rules?
No.
That's okay, is it? Okay?
I'm looking for you now. Sorry. Where is this? This is one of the pumps.
It's where a full batten goes the length of the sail. Yeah.
It is there somewhere. I can't remember now which one it is but it is there. You are allowed to do the pump to invert the batten, you know, to get the batten in the right way.
Listen, don't worry about it. I just, as I say,
but it is allowed. Yes,
yeah,
it is allowed.
You've answered my question. That's all I need.
Yeah,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
As long as Cxema's the jury, you'll be okay.
No, it's written up. It's there in the interpretation. Sorry, I just, because it's an image I cannot. I'm a big fan of doing searches even when I'm on the water.
It's one of those. I'm always embarrassed doing it on the boat, people thinking I'm pumping constantly, and it was well, just wanted to know.
Here it is. Exceptions. If it's this one. If a batten is inverted, the boat's crew might pump the sail until the batten is no longer inverted. Now, you have to be careful. This action is not permitted if it clearly propels the boat. But normally those pumps are very dry pumps, if you know what I mean, and they are so exaggerated to get the batten in the right position that most times will play against you in terms of speed.
Agreed. Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. Any more?
Anyone else have questions? Okay. Well, if
That's
not,
great.
look, yeah, Cxema, thank you very much. I know the rules can be tough, but all the feedback I've got from people has been that this has been a very, very helpful kind of 3 sessions, and obviously creates lots of opportunity for advantage as well when you know the rules properly and how to apply them. So thank you for that.
If I can just finish by saying a couple of things, like I've gotten a couple of emails from some of you guys with some queries. That is great. The important thing to note is that as you move forward, this format for rules teaching is very dry and very hard. The best thing you can do is build into a little bit of the rules in everything that you do, and progress. You know, small increments are a lot more useful than a big theory session. It gets you there, especially if it's after sailing while you were underwater. You know, that is actually very, very useful. You know, so think about not having these massive sessions yourselves, you know, having to go through all of this, but rather, you know, can you get someone to give you a dig and a help every now and then, and do a little bit often rather than a lot very rarely. Okay. If for no other reason that if you don't know the rules, you are going to be at the receiving end more times than